So we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you for coming out. This is a really great turnout. And so just to let you know really quickly what the program is, first we're going to have a set of speakers give 15-minute talks, and then afterwards we'll have time for Q&A. But before we get into the program, I just want to start off by thanking a few groups and people on campus. So first, I'd like to thank the UIC Anthropology Department, specifically the department head Sloan Williams, and also Kim Garza. Without their support, none of this would have been possible, and they really helped get this whole event off the ground. I also want to thank the Honors College and the Anthropology Department for sponsoring the filming of the talk. I also want to thank the staff of the Latino Cultural Center for letting us borrow this space. It's such a wonderful room, and thank you for letting us have it for a little while. I also want to thank the UIC Anthropology Club. If you saw flyers on campus or got notifications in terms of this event, it was thanks to the efforts of the UIC Anthro Club. And then last but not least, I want to thank the speakers. So Jessica Pouchette, Morag Kersel, Alec Awali, Julian Rutherford, and Molly Doan. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come out here and talk about anthropology. So with that, I'd like you to join me in giving everyone a nice round of applause. All right, so the point of today's talks is to engage with the question of, does anthropology matter beyond the classroom? And this isn't some trivial question that I'm engaging in just to play devil's advocate. I'm sure that many of us in this room have had to deal with the problem of, is anthropology relevant? Because we face challenges from family, friends, colleagues, university administration, even the US federal government. Because for those of us who have to apply for federal funding, we've had to face challenges from the members of the US House and Senate who've argued that funding anthropology is a waste of taxpayer money. So today is for anyone who's looking for answers, whether it's for yourself or for others. And so today we provide a sample of how anthropology is making a difference in the world today. The overall point is not necessarily to turn everyone into an anthro major, but the bigger point is that it's okay to be a business major. It's okay to be a chemistry major. I just hope that as you move forward in life, you take the time to engage in an anthropological perspective. And the power of anthropology is that we, more than any other field, engage with others and difference in order to learn. So we go out into the world, we engage with people, we interact with artifacts and the broader primate family, and we do this in order to look at differences and similarities. And as we engage with difference, we open up a greater space for inclusivity, because we can demonstrate how our habits and our culture are not the only way to live. In the process of engaging difference, we often reveal assumptions that we never knew we had. And so I engage in this process of anthropological learning as an archaeologist. So if you look up at the title of my talk, it might seem a little weird, maybe even far-fetched. How can archaeology be a process for social justice? And I think a lot of the skepticism around this idea comes from notions that archaeologists are people who dig in the dirt and look at rocks and pots. And there is some truth to this idea. Archaeologists are known for finding lavish artifacts and documenting abandoned cities. Our finds often capture the world's imagination and make headline news. I'm sure you could log into your phone right now, search archaeology, and find some amazing new discovery in some part of the world. While the thrill of discovery remains an important part of archaeology, we do more than find cool stuff and exotic items. Archaeology is also a social science. By thinking about the power of objects, archaeologists bring a long-term perspective to the human experience. And with this long-term perspective, we've reshaped how people perceive themselves and their role in the world. So we archaeologists unlock the notion of deep time by demonstrating that people evolved over millions of years, primarily in Africa. Archaeologists have also contributed to understanding long-term human and environmental interactions. So recent research on the Maya collapse has demonstrated that this period of massive depopulation in the rainforests of the Yucatan Peninsula was likely triggered due to climate change. And members of the I Hope initiative, which is up on the screen, have taken this archaeological data to think about how people may react to today's contemporary global climate change. And all these efforts are worthwhile, but I argue that many scholars are not tapping into archaeology's full transformative potential. All the forms of impact that I just discussed are focused on findings or results. In other words, the end product of archaeology. I advocate for an institutional revaluing and rethinking of archaeology as a social process. Therefore, we should shift away from fixating on finds and think about how doing research impacts contemporary people. And I often get the question, well, why does that matter? That matters because archaeology has legacies of oppression. In many parts of the world, archaeology was practiced as a form of colonial extraction. And this is the big reason we hear so much in the news today about museums and issues of repatriation. So in the past, foreign elites would go to indigenous communities, extract artifacts, and then bring them back home to their countries, which were often the world's leading imperialist powers. Today, indigenous peoples are loudly proclaiming that they want their heritage back. In addition to colonization, archaeology has famously played a role in nation building. So in the 1800s in Mexico, elites made a concerted effort to promote a national identity with indigenous roots. So if we look up at the Mexican flag, that has indigenous symbolism. It's the symbol for the ancient capital of the Aztec Empire. On the image over here, I don't know if you all can see it, that's an image of former President Porfirio Diaz. And he's standing next to the Aztec calendar stone. This image is trying to do two things. One, it's trying to show the glories of Mexico's pre-Columbian past, and two, to proclaim that Mexico is a modern nation because it can safeguard and control its own heritage. Yet this process of nation building generally ignored and oppressed contemporary indigenous peoples. Contemporary indigenous descendants, such as the Maya, had little say in what the Mexican federal government did with their heritage. Ancient Maya sites such as Palenque and Chichen Itza were transformed by foreign investment, politicians, and archaeologists into hubs of tourism. And Maya archaeological sites and other sites in Mexico are used to generate billions in income from tourism, but very little of that money reaches the hands of indigenous peoples. To address the oppressive nationalist and colonialist legacies of archaeology, recent movements towards collaboration with descendant communities have begun to fundamentally reshape the process of archaeological research. The core of this reshaping is to conduct archaeology in a way that is with, by, and for indigenous and descendant groups. This focus on collaboration is driven in part by greater indigenous activism, both here in the US and abroad. Today, indigenous communities increasingly reassert control over their own history and culture, sometimes with the support of academics and NGOs. Thus, Maya peoples have created narratives of their own past, occasionally with the aim of fostering development through tourism, and I participated in one such initiative in Mexico. I work in the Metzabok region of Chiapas, Mexico, and the region is home to about 150 Lacandon and Talmaya, and is located within the wider Naha Metzabok UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. In 2011, members of the Metzabok Archaeological Project initiated a program of collaborative investigation. So all research in the region is conducted with the permission of the Metzabok community government, and locals comprise a majority of the field crew. So local people will participate on the project as supervisors, mappers, excavators, and laboratory personnel. Through a collaborative research program, the Metzabok Archaeological Project provides a temporary stream of income and builds local capacity in technical skills and archaeological science, such as total station mapping, stratigraphy, and radiocarbon dating. In the process, we fulfill local requests to share our knowledge and financially assist their impoverished community. Over the years, we, meaning local Maya and me, have investigated the history of occupation in the region. During fieldwork, we engage in open dialogue that often leads to debate in terms of the interpretation of artifacts. So a common point of debate is the interpretation of chert flakes. And chert is a type of stone that is brittle, and when it breaks, it forms really sharp edges, and it's really good for making stone tools, and that's what the Maya used it for in the past. But the problem with interpreting chert flakes in the region is that local rock, limestone, can break into little pieces that resemble chert. So when in doubt, we debate. And it often becomes a point of comedy when an item that I thought was a piece of chert turns out to be limestone. For some reason, locals think this is hilarious. But it's okay. I'm not angry about that. The final say in these conversations often rests with local elders who once engaged in the process of stone tool production. Their experience lends them some authority to settle debates, but many locals are not afraid to challenge authoritative arguments. So through this back and forth debate, I've learned about the production of stone tools in the contemporary period and used that to think about the Maya past. And these insights can be found in my doctoral dissertation, which I completed in 2017. Likewise, local Maya have learned how archaeologists think about artifacts, how they think about items, and use those items to think about past human practice. Building from our collaborative investigation, this past summer, the local community and I began a program of community-based archaeological consolidation. And by consolidation, I mean investigating architecture in order to learn about the past and prepare structures for presentation to tourists. The community of Metzabok requested the creation of archaeological infrastructure that could be managed locally to promote sustainable economic development. And we began this project in the summer of 2018. The aim of consolidation in Metzabok is to unite foreign researchers with local Maya to create a history of the Maya past that was developed with, by, and for a descendant community. Accordingly, I collaborated with a Mexican colleague from the Institute of Anthropology and History in Mexico and the community of Metzabok to consolidate a small ancient fortification in the Metzabok region. And the limited scope of our work provided a starting point for locals to become acquainted with the process of archaeological consolidation. And although the work of piecing together a crumbled up structure with rocks all over the place created a few headaches, we nevertheless laid the foundation for future consolidation work in the region. So returning to the title of my talk, archaeology is a process for social justice when we engage in a collaborative research program that actively confronts nationalist and colonialist oppression. We did this in Metzabok, first by becoming research partners with the local Maya, and then together by making histories that are by and for a descendant community. While the oppressive legacies of nationalist and colonialist projects continue to affect indigenous communities in Mexico and many parts of the world, contemporary Maya and Maya peoples all over the world are not standing silent. I plan to continue supporting the initiative in Metzabok to consolidate local ruins and promote tourism. If successful, our collaboration can become a model for other groups to take control of their heritage and promote their own development. So stay tuned for more in the community-driven work in the region of Metzabok. Thank you very much.